And the topic I'm going to talk about this evening is called In Between. There's a little focus on just how we live our lives, not valuing the in-between moments of life. And even in philosophy and religion, just like, for example, just in many of those religions, they put so much emphasis on the beginning and so much emphasis on the end. They forget the most important part is in between. So you can see that people can argue, where did this world start? What was it? How was it originated? Where's it all going to end? And I think you all hopefully saw the newspapers, a very challenged man in the United States who predicted last Saturday would be the end of the world. And I don't know why we always have this obsession with ends. And when we have an obsession with the end, with the goal, with the destination, or we have the obsession with the beginnings, we miss that the most important part of life is this in-between. And so often in life, when we don't celebrate, embrace, learn and love the in-between, we find we miss out on this thing which we call life. I recall as a school teacher, before I became a monk, I was a school teacher just for 1 year. That was enough to make me think about leaving the world and becoming a monk. And I've never looked back since. But I always remember just one of the fellow school teachers, it was in a high school, and he was also fed up with teaching, mainly because he didn't really have the freedom to really do what he wanted. It was a system which was, at that time anyway, it was just so restricted by the demand to do well at the examinations. So it wasn't really teaching education, it was teaching how to pass the exams. But anyhow, he was frustrated, so he got another job, he got accepted, but he had to finish his contract. And I remember him coming up to me one morning and saying something which really shook me. He said he'd woke up that morning and on the way to work he realized he was wishing away months of his life. Because he was in a job he didn't like, and he couldn't change the job for another 4 or 5 months. And so those 4 or 5 months he was trying to get rid of as soon as possible, trying to wish them away, trying to get to some destination of the new job. And he realized that he was wasting 4 or 5 months of his life, and that's a lot of life. And you can see for yourselves just how much of your life you wish away, looking for some goal, some end. You may have just wished away the week. Oh, it's Friday at last. I want to wish away all this week so then I can have the weekend off. Or you may wish, those of you who are getting old like me, may be looking for your retirement. Only 1 year, only 2 years to go. I don't have that luxury. Monks can't retire. It's very unfair. The older I get, the more venerable you are, and the harder you have to work. So old monks just really have to work their butt off. But, and I do really work a lot of butt off, sitting down all day, but that's one of the stories I tell. If you ever go to some of the monasteries, like if you go up to our monastery over in Serpentine, you go up to the Dharna hall there, you see all the floors are always very highly polished. Have you ever noticed that? You go to Asia, these highly polished floors in the temples. You know where they come from? They come from people like you sitting on the floor, fidgeting all the time. And every time you fidget with your fat bottom, you polish the floor. And after many centuries, my goodness, those floors are very highly polished. But when you come to wishing away moments of your life, you find you are wasting this precious thing called the between moments of life. You may be going to work and you've left your home and you're thinking about the destination. You're not enjoying the journey. You are not enjoying the between moments of life. And when you really look at life, that's all we ever have. We're always between things. We never really arrive. We never really started. I don't know, can you remember your birth and when you're supposed to have started? Can you really know what's going to happen to you when you die? It's always in between, which is what we can know, what is more important. It's in between things that life is actually happening. So whatever you are doing this weekend, don't go thinking of where you're going to go to. Don't think the destination is the important part. Don't go doing things to get to heaven or to go to hell because it's more fun down there because you have more friends. Don't just plan, I'll get this out of the way and then I'll be happy. That has been the terrible curse of many people's lives. I will get this out of the way and then I'll be happy. I'll kill myself achieving, these goals. I'll pay off the mortgage. I'll just find a nice girl or the nice boy. I'll just get my nice car. Once I got all these things, then I'll be happy. You realize you're missing out on what we call the between moments, which is really what life is all about. I don't know, I traveled to many places, and was one of the monks today was in the car. Isn't it nice just being between places? Because in between places, you haven't really arrived yet. You don't have to worry about the past. There's no future. You're just in between. And in between, there's no real worries. You're just here. Like when you go on an aircraft and you're traveling from one country to another. Whatever you're going to that country for, you haven't arrived yet, so the business hasn't started. Wherever you've come from, that's all finished with. You can't get your mobile phones on the aircraft. So being in an aircraft is very much a between moment. And in that between moment, that's where you can really relax. Have you ever noticed that all the problems in your life, all the difficulties, all the stuff which creates business is always where you're going to, what you have to achieve, what you've got to fix up in the future, what you've got to do tomorrow. All those tomorrow moments. I don't mean tomorrow the next day, I mean tomorrow the next minute. All those tomorrow moments, the destination, where you're headed for. That's where all the problem comes. It's fear, it's anxiety. And of course, all those past moments, where you've come from, where you've originated from, your history, your background, that's where all the guilt and all of the anger and all of the negativity come from. It's just too much of a burden. But that between moment, called life as it happens, the present moment, that is where the beauty, freedom and happiness lies. And of course, we waste so many between moments. Is one of the reasons why life goes by. And you're 40, 50, 60, and you wonder, why is it that life has gone by so fast? And the reason is because you haven't been here when it's been happening. You're always going somewhere else, always lingering in the past, just being a prisoner of history. Are you missing out? This is not just missing out because life is precious. And even Buddhism, we do say life is very, very precious. A human life is just enormously precious. So we want to give importance to life, but by importance to life, it doesn't mean just importance to like a human being. Life is what's happening right now in the present moment. So it's enjoying this moment, also learning and growing from it, which is the important meaning of life. If anyone has actually asked me, what is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is living it as it happens. Because there's no real meaning in life, is it, when you're just worrying where you're going to get to? When you're always thinking of the destination. You've lost the meaning of life, which is the journey. If you're always worrying about the past, where you've come from, how many of you are just very limited, because, you keep living your life in the past. We all have been hurt. We all have been sort of cheated. We all have been abused. But it's one of the great sayings of the Buddha, he abused me, he cheated me, he sort of hurt me. And anyone who keeps obsessed with such thoughts, they're never free. So if you keep thinking of that past, and it's amazing just how we always think negatively of the past, we can never be free to enjoy the moment, to enjoy where we are. We just lose all the between moments because we're always stuck where we come from with these important moments of our life, but in the past. They're not that important. The important moment is where you are now. The meaning of life is only found in the present, and the meaning of life is living this moment in a good way. Not just because you want to get somewhere, because many people, they sacrifice their ethics, their morality, their compassion, Because think, oh, well, where's this going to lead to? What's going to happen? A lot of times in my life, if I start thinking of the consequences of these actions, if I'm kind to this person, what's going to happen in the future? How's it going to affect my monastery? How's it going to affect the Buddhist society? How's it going to affect the world? And when you start thinking of the future consequences like that, you lost the between moment, you lost this moment now, and a lot of times you're not compassionate, you're not kind enough. Look, there's just one silly moment which comes to mind. I was, just even last week, I had to perform a funeral service, and it's also just arriving back from Melbourne. Sometimes as a monk I get stuck, because I'm out of the monastery. I can't get back to the monastery by our lunchtime. And you may know that Buddhist monks of our tradition, we only have this space between dawn and noon where we can have our meal. And sometimes you're looking after someone, you're traveling, or you're doing a funeral service or a wedding in the morning time, and it's tough to get your meal. And so a lot of times, to get a hot meal, I've gone to the shopping centres, to the food courts, simply because at least you can get a hot meal there, because otherwise the restaurants, the cafes, they don't open until after 12, and that's too late for me. So I remember going to a food court, and the person in front of me, I was with the Anagarika, the attendant holding the money, the person in front of me was this very old lady, and she was ordering herself, I think, a roast meal. And as soon as I saw her, I thought of my old mother. Because, she looked about the same size, the same type of curly hair. And this little old lady, a pensioner, was just trying to get her lunch, a nice, probably treat for her. And as soon as I saw her, the thought was in my mind, I know this, and I shouldn't do this, I know this is not my money, but I wanted to ask the fellow with me, you buy her meal. I want to sort of donate it, because it was like my mum, and I felt really sad. And that was one moment I said, no, you're not really supposed to do that. It's not my money, it's the Buddhist Society's money. And I really regret that, I think I should have done that. Because I thought of the consequences, I lost my compassion. I lost that opportunity to do something very beautiful. Just this little old lady. And just because she reminded me of my old mum. And I should have done that. Next time I will do that, I promise. But there's many moments like that you've lost in your life. Moments when, instead of following your heart, you follow the head, which says, what's the consequence? What's going to happen in the future? I know sometimes that doesn't work. If in this moment, if it's a compassionate, good, kind act, it's going to be okay. It's going to work all right. These days, I trust this between moment. If this between moment is good and beautiful, the future will look after itself. As I said during the meditation, this moment now is where your future is being made. So if you make this moment good, the future is bound to be wonderful. That's what the law of karma means. Karma is what you do now. It's this moment, the karma is good right now, the future has to be good. So you don't have to worry too much. Let karma just work out how it's going to happen. But if in this between moment, where you're traveling, what you're doing right now is beautiful and good, trust that. Doesn't matter what you think the consequences are going to be, what they're going to think, what's going to happen, who cares? Just do it. It becomes beautiful. Many other occasions, I can only speak from my life because that's the one I really know. Many times actually I did take that opportunity to be kind, to be generous, and just to hell with the consequences. And I remember one time it was my lunchtime, and there was a call. A woman was in big trouble. She had stabbed her mother-in-law. Mother-in-law was taken to hospital, and this woman, she'd escaped to the airport, and she was crazy. She said I was the only person she wanted to see. So of course, you go and help her. Last thing you want to think about is your lunch. I missed my lunch that day. I went hungry, but who cares? You could help somebody. And of course, I'm always proud of that. When I've stopped what I should be doing, in sense of where I should be going, and just think what I needed to do, I've always managed to find out that I have been in the between moment of where I've come from, where I'm supposed to go to. I've been in that between moment. I've looked after that. I've cared for that. I made that good. And that's always been very successful, because that's where karma happens. That's the only time you can actually be spiritual. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but in this between moment called your life. And if you make the between moments beautiful, you know the meaning of life. So please, destinations aren't that important. They look after themselves. The past, totally gone. This moment, this present, the between moment in time, that's where the action is. So that's one of the reasons why, even in Buddhism, they don't give much attention to the oranges of this universe. No, the origins of the universe. They don't give much attention to the end of the universe and Judgment Day. No, Judgment Day. Where is Judgment Day? Judgment Day is... I said that a few weeks ago. Not Judgment Day. In Buddhism, we don't have Judgment Day. We have Forgiveness Day. It must be more beautiful. Because Judgment Day is very harsh, isn't it? Bad, good. We're half bad. Remember when you were a kid and you got your reports at the end of the year or the end of the school term, how sometimes you were just very nervous of what's going to happen? Judgment Day is really awful, even if you're good at school. But isn't it much nice to have Forgiveness Day? So in Buddhism, no Judgment Day, Forgiveness Day. And when is Forgiveness Day? Today, yes. Today is Forgiveness Day. In other words, what Forgiveness Day is like Love Day. Oh, it doesn't matter what you've done wrong. I can still love you. I can still embrace you. You're still okay. Now, what that actually means in practice, because somebody, a very nice person, they were telling me that this morning they had a lot of negativity and they just couldn't get rid of the negativity. And even negativity is a between moment. So what do we do with the negativity? If we're looking at getting rid of the negativity, again, we've got like an end moment. If we're wondering, where did this negativity come from? It came, my wife did something wrong to me, or I got a speeding ticket at work. We're wondering where it came from. And of course, that's not the between moments. Instead of, if you have some negativity, wondering who caused it, where did it come from, instead of how can I get rid of it so I can get to this point where I'm free of negativity, you're missing the between moment. You're negative. Make peace, be kind with it. That's the way that negativity disappears. You're embracing it. You're learning. It's an important thing in life. Don't neglect or reject anything in life. If you're negative right now, in Buddhism we say be mindful of it, but don't be just mindful of it, be kind to it as well. So if you're mindful and kind to the negativity which you are experiencing, you will find actually, surprise, surprise, it disappears. But if you're negative to the negativity, get out of here, you don't belong, it gets worse. Now there is a key story which many of you know, but you can apply this so many times, I'm going to say it right now. It's the story of the emperor and the monster. I haven't said this for a while here. It's one of the key stories in the book, Opening the Door of Your Heart, which I've just got the Korean translation today, or yesterday. It's been translated into so many different languages. But one of the key stories in that book, which psychologists like so much, they say it's one of the 3 key stories they use in their rooms to treat people. So if you keep coming here, you don't need to go to psychologists. You get all of their stories here, and you don't have to pay so much money. This is a bargain coming to here on a Friday night. Psychologists, they really charge a lot of money. And that particular story, I'll tell it sort of because it's a fascinating one, and it's amazing just how many times in so many circumstances you can apply it. Once upon a time there was an emperor, and on a Friday night he came to Dhammaloka Center in Nolamara, which meant that his palace was empty. And while he was away, this monster, this demon, came into the palace, and he was so frightening and terrifying that all the guards who were supposed to look after the place froze in horror, allowing this monster to walk right into the middle of the palace and sit on the emperor's throne. And as soon as the monster sat on the emperor's chair, all the guards, the police, the ministers came to their senses, and what did they say? Get out of here! Who do you think you are? You don't belong here! Get out! And at those words, that monster grew an inch bigger, more ugly, more stinky, and his language got worse. And that really upset them. And they clenched their fists, they got out their swords, they made all these threats, shouted at this monster, trying to get rid of him. But every unkind word, every unkind deed, every aggressive thought, the monster just grew an inch bigger, more ugly, more smelly, and language got worse. And by the time the emperor came back, after listening to a wonderful talk at Dhammaloka Buddhist Center in Nolamara, this monster was huge. He took up half of the hall where the throne was. And he was so ugly, so frightening, that even, as I said in the book, even Mr. Spielberg, with all the resources of DreamWorks, would not be able to make such a frightening monster. Did you ever see Alien? That was nothing compared to this monster, who was terrible. Actually, I've never seen Alien. I'm too scared, I think. But the monster was so frightening. And the smell, the stench coming off this monster was so bad that even the maggots crawling all over him threw up. To make a maggot sick, I mean, that must be a really bad smell. And the language coming out of this monster's mouth was worse, much worse, than you'll hear in Northbridge on a Saturday night when both the Eagles and the Fremantle Dockers lost. But that emperor, he'd just been to Buddhist Society for Dhamma talk. So he was wise. He knew what to do. He looked at that incredibly frightening, stinky monster and said, "Welcome. Thank you so much for coming to visit me. Why did you wait so long? Why didn't you call so I could actually prepare something for you? Has anyone got you a cup of tea or something to eat yet?" At those kind words, that monster grew an inch smaller, less ugly, less smelly, less offensive. And of course, all the soldiers and guards and ministers, they saw that, and they realized their mistake. So a couple of very, very, very courageous soldiers came up to him and said, "How about a cup of tea? You know, we have what I call Theravada tea, like Dilmar from Sri Lanka. Or you can have Mahayana tea, this is green tea from China. Or would you like some Australian tea, some peppermint, it's good for your health. Would you like some honey in that?" And they were very serious. And so the monster grew an inch smaller, less ugly, less smelly, less offensive. A couple of other ministers said, "Well, how about a foot massage? Have you ever had a foot massage?" And now these monsters have huge feet, so it took about 10 ministers for each foot. And they gave this monster a foot massage, and the monster loved every second of that. And of course, every time they were kind and did that to the monster an inch smaller, less ugly, less smelly, less offensive. Another person said, "What do you want to eat? How about a pizza?" Monster size. You can't get monster pizzas, can't you? You can't. I'm sure you can get some somewhere. Anyway, every kind act, word, deed, or thought, that monster grew an inch smaller, less ugly, less smelly, less offensive. And they were just laying this on for this monster. And in no time at all, it seemed, he was back to the size when he first came in. I don't know why I call it a he. That's being sexist. Why can't monsters be she's? So let's call it it and don't get in trouble. So it was back to the size when it first came in. But of course, they kept on being kind. And soon that monster was so tiny, because every kind act, word or deed or thought, the monster grew an inch smaller, less ugly, less smelly, less offensive. Soon that monster was so tiny that one more act of kindness and the monster disappeared totally. And that was a story which the Buddha told. It's in Nudana. I never made that up, but I did add the bits about the pizza, the foot massage. I did. And coming to Dhammaloka Buddhist Center, that was not in the Buddhist ancient teachings. But when the Buddha told that story, he said, we call that an anger-eating monster. It feeds on anger. You give it ill will, and it grows an inch bigger, more ugly, more offensive, harder to deal with. And once I read that, I thought, my goodness, what a great insight into life. How many anger-eating monsters are there in life? I'm negative. I don't want to be negative. I'm giving my anger to this monster of negativity. And of course, it's going to get bigger and worse. That's why, if you are negative, say thank you, negativity, for coming into my life. Would you like a foot massage or a cup of tea or a pizza? That's only a metaphor, of course, but actually learning how to be kind to your negativity. Because that negativity is happening in a between moment, called now. If you've just lost someone close to you, then you're in this between moment. You know that that person you had such good times with them. And you know that in the future that your grief is going to go. But now you're in that grief, those times of mourning. Please cherish those moments. Don't think I've got to get rid of my grief. This is another between moment in your life. Cherish it, embrace it. Thank you for coming to visit me. Grief. Because you learn so much from that grief moment. It's something which, we say we're supposed to get rid of. It's something which is given this bad name of something evil and harmful, and something which, even like a sickness, we're not allowed to be grieving. Come on, get over it. Come on, we don't like you to be grieving. We want you to be happy again. No. Don't try and get rid of these things, because if you do, you're feeding it more ill will. Get out of here, grief. You don't belong. And it just gets bigger and worse. So instead we say, welcome, grief. And why do we say welcome to something like grief? I do a lot of work with people after their funeral services. There's something sweet as well as sour with death, especially with grief. We miss a person, we grieve. And why is that? Because we loved them so much. There was something wonderful that we had, which is why we grieve afterwards. You can't have the sour without the sweet. If you'd never loved them to begin with, if you didn't enjoy their company, if you didn't have such great times and wonderful memories being with them, where would be the grief? It wouldn't exist. So we understand that grief is always coming with the beauty as well. It is a sour moment, but there's some sweetness there as well. And if you can see that sweetness with the sour, you can actually embrace this. This is important. You're being a human being. You're someone who loves. And someone who loves will always be someone who hurts. You cannot have one without the other. As I mentioned before, it's that hurt is where we learn the importance of love. It is what we call the growing pains of life. Without those growing pains, where would there be any learning? Where would there be any understanding of what compassion truly is? Sometimes you tell that to young girls, young boys, especially. I'm very privileged. I love being a monk here because I've been here in Perth for over 27 years now. And some of you have been coming just about all those years. And I've known some of these girls before they were born, seeing them their parents come and present them to me and just so joyful for a little blessing. And then they grow up and they become teenagers and then they get into big trouble. And when they get into big trouble, they can't tell their mum and dad, so they come and tell me. It's like being like a godfather, like a grandfather. And they know they can come and tell me if they get in trouble because their parents respect me, and so I can tell their parents, leave her alone. Because, okay, she's made a mistake, but, they all make mistakes. So I can be like the intermediary to protect people. And I love that role because I've been around a long time and I'm very respected. You can really help people. You can really sort of care for them. And that's one of the things which, yeah, they're in pain. They made a big mistake. They're really suffering. But, wonderful, well done. You are going to learn so much from this. You're going to really understand what life is. This is the meaning of life, not just the happy moments. But you find the meaning of life in the painful moments. Any moment you find the meaning of life, because it's always a between moment. You know, the trouble is with the painful moments, we always think that, we haven't finished the work yet, there's a problem there, there's something which needs to be fixed. But really, is life ever fixed? Is all your difficulties and problems always finished? Those of you who have a house, who are on this weekend, got all these jobs to do around the house, do you think you'll ever have another weekend, ever, where all those jobs are finished? Do you ever think that you'll always, finish your education? Some people are still doing their degrees. So our Vice President, she was supposed to do the announcements today, but, she's doing an exam for a law degree. My goodness, she's already got enough degrees. But we never finish, do we? Does life ever finish? Or is life always work in progress? Life is always between moments. And this is where life is happening. So if it's grief, it's a between moment. Don't think, when that grief goes, then I'll be happy. Don't think of why that happened, where it came from. It's a between thing. Celebrate it. That is life. And don't worry if it's painful. Don't worry if it's pleasant. Both are important. Often I said to people, do you love life? If they're in a good mood, they say, yeah, I love life. I say, do you love the sour part of life as well? And you can't have the sweet without that sour. To really love life is embracing the whole lot, not just the part you like. Otherwise you don't know what love is. You can't have a partner who's perfect. If you want to love, you can't just love half of him or half of her. You've got to love the whole lot. Otherwise, you have to love her nagging. You have to love when he farts. You have to love everything, especially in bed. Otherwise, what do you think love is about anyway? This is actually when you learn life in those between moments. And anyway, in that loving, part of that between moments, which I've mentioned so many times here, which is really important, it's the things between you and him or her. That is where the relationship lies. Because sometimes that you think this is where I begin, that's where I end with that person. And there's not a between there. All relationships are you and the other person and what goes on between you. That's what we mean relationship. It's nothing about him or her. It's not about me. It's what happens in between us. That is where the action is. So if you always blame him, it's her fault. Or like many of you do, it's my fault. You're looking at the wrong place. It's between us. As I've also said, as many wise people have said, you cannot change life. Life is out there. I'm in here being in life. But what is my relationship with life? What do I put between me and the world? Have you ever seen that so many people put so much negativity in that between space? Between them, what you're experiencing, and what you have to experience. Between you and life. So many people put negativity between them and life. And you can imagine what that does to you. That they're not really looking at the between space and what they're doing with it. If you put negativity into the between space, nothing is good, nothing is very satisfying. No partner will ever be good enough, which means you can't live with anybody. When you look at yourself between you and who you think you are, you put negativity in there, you put negativity in life, you must be in enormous pain. So for me, having realized that this between space, between me and you this evening, Between you, me and you, I'm putting this beautiful compassion and kindness. Now as I look at you, I'm putting, this is imaginary, me and you, putting this beautiful compassion and truth and trust between me and you, not negativity. When I actually do that, you can actually connect, and actually that what you actually say becomes something which is meaningful. It's not what you are looking at. It's not who's doing the looking. It's what's between those two is what life is all about. Sometimes people want to change the world. They want to change their partner. They want to change the government. They want to change everything. And ever you notice when you try and do that, when you try to do some change so we will have a world to live in, so that we can stop this climate change business, or whatever else you're really concerned with in our modern world, why is it that no one achieves anything? Why is it you can have like the Copenhagen climate change conference and there's no resolution? What is it? Just mean we have to have more meetings, or is there something fundamentally wrong we're doing? And I say there is something fundamentally wrong. It's what's the relationship between me and that world. It's not me trying to control the world. It's not the world making me suffer. It's realizing I'm not putting enough care, enough sensitivity, enough peace, enough positive energy between me and this world. It's a relationship we have with this planet Earth. Everything is a relationship. Me and what I have to deal with. And if we put this beautiful peace and kindness, gentleness between me and whatever, we call that good karma. And there's a sort of trust which I have, because I've looked at this, examined it, and it works. Of course, it says it in Buddhism. If you do good karma in this moment, you can trust the results are going to be fine. If you make peace, be kind, be gentle with whatever you have to experience, that's called good karma, which means the future has to be good. But you put that good karma, the only time you can do anything for your future is right now. What do we do? Aggression? Argument, me and him and her and that person, that never works. It always has to be the between. And if we put more attention on that between, it's amazing what we can achieve. It's about us, baby. That's from my upbringing, listening to Elvis Presley. It's not about me or you. It's not about the world. It's not about sort of the people. It's about the relationship human beings have with this world. What's in between us. And that's the meaning of life. And that's also the way that I've been teaching meditation for just the last many, many years. Because I like to actually draw the parallels. This meditation, not something you do to escape from the world. This meditation is how you learn what the world actually is. The attitudes you have to your mind, to yourself when you're meditating, are the same attitudes you have towards life when you leave here. Now there's some people, I know they're so aggressive when they meditate. They sit with a straight back, gritting their teeth. They're going to beat down their mind. They look upon the body and mind as their slave, which they can control and make to do what they want to do. And that type of aggression, afterwards, then they go out and they go home and they don't allow anybody to come in front of them in the traffic. They run the lights. They argue with sort of the people they live with at home. They argue with their computer. You stupid computer, you've crashed again. Have you ever seen people like that? They're just the relationship they have with everything is very dysfunctional. So look at the relationship you have with your computer. That's a good sign of how you can meditate. I said a couple of weeks ago, even with computers, you should give it loving kindness. Every now and again, stroke your computer. Just go, there, computer. No, give it a go. It actually works. You know that story which I think I said a couple of weeks ago? I told this in Melbourne just a couple of days ago, and it's a powerful tale. Now that tale about that German visitor to our monastery, about a year or two ago now. He was a student at a university over in Germany somewhere, and he said the first day he went on campus, he passed the ATM machine. And the ATM machine, the way he put it, made a sound, a gurgling noise at him. And just being a young student, he got the idea the machine was just saying hello to him. And so from that time on, he'd always say hello to the machine. He'd treat it with kindness. He'd give it what we call in Buddhism metta, loving kindness to that particular ATM. That was his friend. And he treated it like a friend, not like some soulless machine. And he said, and I asked him many times, he said, this was true, I won't lie to you, it happened. He said one day he was sitting having his lunch, not far from the ATM, and the ATM said hello to him again. It gurgled. And then he looked around. He knew he'd been sitting there for a while, no one had come close to that ATM for maybe 10, 15 minutes. And he looked around because it made a sound. And a 20-euro note came out from the slot. And he couldn't believe what had happened. He took the euro note out, he waved it and asked, does this belong to anybody? No one claimed it. He knew that no one had been around that machine for a while. It was just his machine, his friend, had decided to repay his kindness. It's just a law of karma. You're kind to the ATM, and the ATM will be kind to you. 20 euros. And he said that was actually a true story. It actually happened. But please, don't try that. Otherwise, all you people will be going out to find the nearest ATM. Nice ATM, kind ATM. I really love you, ATM. Come on, cough up. But the relationship one has with a machine, with an ATM or whatever, that actually reflects the relationship one has with your friends, your lover, yourself, and with life. Look, sometimes those machines, they do break down. Sometimes the people we know do let us down. It's just the nature of things. Sometimes your husband crashes. Sometimes your wife has a virus. You know what happens in life. It's just nature. This is what happens in life. So we've got to learn how to make a better relationship with life. And so whenever I'm experiencing something, I always look, what's between me and my experience? Just when we're meditating, there was a bub somewhere was speaking. Wasn't that beautiful? Or did you get disturbed? Look, you've got a choice. That bub is going to speak. The mobile phones are going to go off, no matter how many times you tell them to turn it off. You know that's happened to you. You thought you turned it off. That happened to me. I was doing, just at 5 o'clock, we were doing a wedding ceremony here. And just when the bride and groom were saying their vows, the mobile phone went off. And just the most important moment of their life, when they say, I do, the phone went off. I thought it was very funny. So, you've got a choice. You can laugh and think it's funny, or you can actually get upset and angry. There's a sound which comes and disturbs your precious meditation, the sound of a bub speaking. And you think, no, we should not allow babies in this hall. We should have a big sign outside. We should have, like the nightclubs, we should have these bouncers outside to frisk everybody for babies before they come in, just like at the airport. That's like negativity. Your relationship to life is just all wrong. So I think our relationship towards life is the most important thing. It's between us and our experience, us and our grief, us and our anger, us and our love, us and where we are. So when we start thinking of where we're trying to get to, we should have a hall which is totally peaceful, with no bubs, absolute silence. We should have our life, without any argument. We should have a person, a partner in life, who always has time for us, who's always there for us, who's always entertaining, who's always sort of sensitive. As someone once said, if that's the sort of partner you want, someone who's always there for you but can be quiet when you just want to be by yourself, who's always entertaining and good fun to be with, then you should marry a television. Always entertaining, you can always turn them off whenever you want. But, human beings aren't like that. They're people just like you. And if you have that understanding of the between, then you have an understanding of what life is. You also have to have an understanding about the spiritual part of life. Spiritual part of life is not where we're going to go to when we die. Spiritual part of life is not where we came from, who created us, or whether we evolved, or whatever happens. That's not the point. That's just arguments. It's a between. Where are we now? What's happening right now? How is your life right now? What is your relationship with now? With the person in front of you? That's one of the reasons why one of the best pieces of advice of how to live life. Was another story from Opening the Door of Your Heart, the Emperor's 3 questions. Most important time? Most important person? No. You got it wrong. You haven't read my book. It's available in the library, $25. Special this evening because I advertised it. I'll give a reduction, $24.99. But, in that book of Emperor's 3 questions, now is the most important time. The most important person is the one you're with. Whoever that happens to be, not just yourself. You missed the point about relationships if you think the most important person is yourself. Where's the one you're with? It's the withness, the between. That's the most important thing. And the most important thing to do is to care. Whoever you are with, whoever you're talking to, whatever experience you are with in life, if you are grieving, the most important thing in life is your grief. Not to get rid of it. And the most important thing to do is to care. Just like I've been telling the doctors and nurses, because there was a doctor came, he was a locum, but he lives over in Sydney. He came to monastery today. And he was actually very keen on health education and trying to put more compassion into health education so that every doctor and every nurse and every physiotherapist, chiropractor, whatever, just increases the importance of compassion in their in their lives with their clients. To put compassion between them and the client, so that they realize that that's the most important thing to do, to care. And of course, you've heard me say that here. The most important thing for a doctor to do is not to cure, but to care. It's the relationship they have with the disease. Sometimes the disease will end in death. Sometimes it won't. So we can't always cure, but we can always care. If you really want to control life, if you're really thinking of the endings when that patient is healthy and they're out of your hospital, if that's the ending you want to get, and you don't like the ending of death, you're an end person. You're not a between person. The between person is what's happening in this moment, between the time they got that sickness and between whatever's going to happen to them. And the most important thing to do is to care. Be compassionate. And I know that if I get sick, especially if it's my last sickness, I don't want some doctor to try being hell-bent on curing me so I can come back and give the next Friday night talk here. I don't want that. I want people to care for me. So if it is my dying process, I want it to be a beautiful dying process. Not to have all these interventions which stop me enjoying this beautiful process called dying. I've seen many people die. I've imagined myself dying. And it can be a very beautiful process. The end of a life, like a sunset, the end of a day, the most beautiful time, I think, over here in the West. I love sunsets. The end of a day. Wow, isn't that wonderful? just like the end of a life. Can't we care for that? Celebrate it. Because I also remember my music. I used to love these great sort of symphonies. And in the symphony, it would always come together at the very, very end. You know, the crescendo. And that was just amazing. You'd almost be waiting for that. Sometimes, no, quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. You knew it was coming. You'd wait. And at the very end, whoosh. You saw the whole orchestra just coming together with the theme, all together. Loud, powerful, moving. Just like the death of a human being. The end of a day. Beautiful. What's your relationship with that? You see, you can look upon it in a beautiful way. You can put beauty. I can put beauty in anything. So all I do is I put it between me and that. Because sometimes I just have to work so hard. When I was in Melbourne, getting up really early in the morning, because I'm used to getting up early in the morning. I think day started at 7 o'clock. It didn't finish till about 10:30 p.m. How many hours is that? About 15 and a half hours. Same the next day and the next day. So that was actually really hard work. But I enjoyed every moment of it. Simply because you put beauty into whatever you have to do. So this is the relationship you have with life. The between. Not where you've come from, not where you're going to. Not you, the observer. Not the person in front of you. But what's between you. Not life, the earth, the planet, and you as something separate. But put your attention. Life is what happens in between. So the whole idea of like a soul, a me, it's not important. The whole idea of you, it's not important. What's really important is what's between us. So the whole idea of a self and selfishness, the whole idea of getting upset and angry at you, just totally disappears. Instead, we've got this beautiful relationship, the between moments of life. So that's where the action is. So if you keep looking at what's between, there you find the meaning of life. You find wisdom. You find where you should be putting the attention of your life. If you look at the betweens, not where you've come from, not where you've gone to, but where you are. You put the betweens, not just, the journey of life and just looking, when are we going to get there, when are we going to get there, but where are you now? As one friend said, when I was just so busy working here, and they asked, how's it going? And I made the stupid comment, I'm getting there. Have you ever made that statement? Yeah, I'm getting there. And he asked me, where are you getting? I said, oh my God, I've lost it. You're not getting anywhere. Are you getting anywhere in your meditation? Are you getting anywhere in your life? Are you getting anywhere in your relationships? Are you getting anywhere in your career? You're not getting anywhere. You're being here. And that is the meaning of life. So don't get anywhere. Be here. So when I ask you, how's it going? You just say, I'm being here. Then well done. So those are the between moments, being here. Thank you for listening. Very good. So has anyone got any comments or questions about this talk this evening? In between. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, that's Eckhart Tolle. I was saying, watch the gap in between the words. I think he must be listening to these Buddhist talks for a long time. No, it's very good. That's exactly what we've been saying, the gap. Actually, that's what happens in London, isn't it? Because I've been on the underground in London. They say, mind the gap. Mind the gap. That's what you should be doing, minding the gap. Caring for it. The gap between where you come from and where you're going. This moment now. So yeah, I agree with that. Any other comments? Aha, the grief and the letting go. As another person once said, letting go is lovely, but even better than letting go is letting be. And they made a very nice point. Letting go means, go, 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 go. Just like the boss at work says, I'm sorry, but I'll have to let you go. And they're not being Buddhist. Get out of here, you're sacked. But letting people be, or letting the moment be, letting the grief be, that has a slightly different connotation. And when you let it be, actually it does go. But letting it be is a beautiful thing. I mention that because, again, that was one of the songs which was played at the funeral on Thursday. That was for, some of you know the fellow, been part of our Buddhist Society for a long time, is Lindsay Thorogood, otherwise known as Ajita. So it's one of the songs they played, Let It Be. Because he'd been totally brainwashed by me for such a long time. And his final song, as we came out of the chapel, this was done also by Michael Wright, who was another member here. A wonderful song. It's the one which I like the best, which has the most meaning at the end of a funeral service. Look on the bright side of life, da 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 da. So that's the second funeral I've been when that's been the parting song. Yeah, certainly on funerals. So there we go. Okay, yes, a couple of questions. First, yes, gentlemen, yeah? That's a good idea. Maybe I can start that. No, they don't. No, it's not. Okay, you're saying that there's a Zen monastery, it's a Heiji monastery over in Japan. It used to, founded by this monk Dogen, that 700, almost 800 years ago now, 750 years ago. And that was supposed to get them awake, stop their sloth and torpor. I totally disagree with that. I remember just when I was teaching some of the prisoners, I showed them that documentary. Oh, they were really upset. Said, if you tried that on me, Ajahn Brahm, you'd be mincemeat. You'd be dead. No, you don't really need to do that. I think that was too harsh. Sometimes in Buddhism they are too harsh. Like kindness is much better. So, and many of you have been meditating retreats with me. If somebody is that sleepy, I don't hit them on the back. What I do is say, if you want to sleep, go to bed. That's what beds are there for, to sleep. So take it easy, you must be tired. Or just make peace and be kind with your sleepiness. That's the way it goes, much quicker. Can you have discipline without being hard on yourself? Absolutely. Because being hard upon yourself is not discipline, it's fear. The greatest discipline is disciplining yourself in compassion and kindness and forgiveness and peace. Many people don't understand that. So yeah, they can actually get up early, they can sit straight, but they've got no kindness, they've got no peace. They just got fear and control. Discipline just makes you control more. You can't let things be. You end up not just disciplining yourself, you discipline your partner. You discipline the people you work with. You just became a pain in the back. Just like those Zen monks, a great pain in the back. That's where they hit you. Oh, it doesn't work. It's totally against what I understand as truth. So be kind. If you're kind and compassionate and wise and peaceful, just people want to live up to that example. That's discipline. Motivation. Hello, Eddie. Go on. Okay. Okay. Okay, you're saying that the feelings, sometimes when something nice happens to you, you feel good. When something unpleasant, you feel bad. But when you do feel bad, or when you do feel good, what are you doing with that? What are you making out of that bad feeling? Are you trying to get rid of it? Are you trying to just find a way to escape from it? Are you getting upset at yourself? I'm stupid, I'm hopeless. Why do I always feel bad? Why do I always feel so yucky? Why does it always happen to me? You can see just how you could add so much negativity to the experiences of life, and you create that negativity. But if you have what I've been saying today, the in-between moment, yeah, you feel bad, but what's between you, the observer, and that feeling of badness? How are you reacting to it? What are you putting between you and that? If you put wisdom, this too will pass, brilliant. If you put sort of kindness, I can learn from this. It's important, it's valuable to me. I can learn, this hurts, why did it hurt? I'll make sure I never do this again. So you can learn by accepting this moment as a growing pain, as a teaching for you, and becoming kinder, more compassionate, more tolerant as a result. So nothing in life should be discarded. Let it be. If it does hurt, it's a wonderful teacher. If it's beautiful, enjoy it to the max. But accept everything, because this everything is all you have. Life. So, that's enough for this evening. Thank you all for listening.